the franchise tag deadline 1 hour away from now at 4 Eastern. The prices are hefty to go ahead and keep those guys, if they do, on the roster. We are going to keep you up to date with the very latest of what comes in. Who is getting tagged? We're finding out who is not getting tagged. Amanda Garrett, Chris Hassel, bum shoulder over there, Chris Hassel, Kyle Long, and Pete Prisco.
Getting old, buddy.
Hear it.
Getting old.
Yeah, we couldn't punch you and be like, tag.
That was a good action.
It's this shoulder. I'm keeping it away from you guys. I'm all right. Also, Breece Hall is all right. He was one of the players tagged, the only one today, but that makes it 3 now in all who have been tagged with an hour to go until the deadline. Breece Hall, one of 3 active players with 3,000 rushing yards and over 1,500 receiving yards in his first 4 seasons. He will remain with the Jets. But what about Daniel Jones and Alec Pierce with the Indianapolis Colts? That's where we start with Jonathan Jones, who joins us now, our lead NFL insider. There's an hour to go for the Colts to somehow get something done with Daniel Jones long term, or JJ, they're going to have to use some kind of tag on him, right?
Yeah, that seems to be the way things are headed right now. A couple hours ago, they were not really close on a long-term contract extension. And so when faced with the prospect of tagging the quarterback or the wide receiver, we all know you only have one tag to use. It could be the franchise or transition tag, but it can only go to one player. Any team would typically choose the quarterback over the receiver, no matter how much they like that receiver. And so the odds are that a tag will be issued on Daniel Jones. If it's the franchise tag, you're talking about $44 or so million for 2026. If it's the transition tag, you're talking about $6 million less. However, it opens up the Colts to potentially have Daniel Jones snatched away from them if a team signs him to an offer sheet and the Colts are unwilling or unable to match that deal. And so that's sort of the $6 million question with the Colts right now. Save the money and potentially use it for other free agents, like, let's say, Alec Pierce in a deal. But that is the other issue. When you tag Daniel Jones, Alec Pierce is just less than a week away from becoming a free agent. And his number is going to be high. It will be high 30s. It might, I was just talking with a high-level team executive, it might even touch 40, which is insane to think about, but he has led the NFL in yards per reception each of the past 2 seasons. So it could get to a point that he can't, the Colts can't retain him, or he gives them a bit of a hometown discount to stay there. He may like what they are building there in Indianapolis. So that is what is facing the Indianapolis Colts right now, less than an hour to go.
How is Pierce that valuable that teams might be willing to pay $40 million for him?
Well, there aren't that many wide receivers who are going to hit the open market, right? When you look at it, there's George Pickens, who's not going anywhere. He's going to be with the Dallas Cowboys in 2026. There's Kyle Pitts, obviously a tight end, but with wide receiver capabilities, who has been tagged. If you want him, you're going to have to trade for him. There's Deebo Samuel, who's out there, but it's Alec Pierce. He can stretch the field. He changes the game for your offense against these defenses. Again, it wasn't a one-year kind of fluke with him, yards per reception. It was 2 years with different quarterbacks there in Indianapolis. So teams are going to be salivating at getting a young player like that on a deal who will have that consistent defense beatability, if you will, moving forward. So that is why his number is going to go so high here in the next week.
JJ, I apologize. We have kept you from breaking news because the tag is going to be used on Daniel Jones, not the franchise tag, but according to NFL media, it is the transition tag. And you just briefly spoke on that. What does that mean that the Colts are using the transition tag on Daniel Jones?
So the transition tag and the number is going to officially be $37.8 million. Again, we've been anticipating that it would be the transition tag for Daniel Jones. Okay, so here's what that means. If a team wants to talk with Daniel Jones and his representatives, they can work up an offer to Daniel Jones, a long-term contract extension. They can issue it to Daniel Jones, and he could sign that offer. From that point, the Indianapolis Colts would have 5 days to look at that offer and attempt to match it, or if they wanted to, even better that deal. At that point, if they decided to match that deal, Daniel Jones would be an Indianapolis Colt to the terms of that offer sheet that another team worked up. If, for example, they decided not to do it, let's say, and teams can't put in poison pills anymore, but you can make it so that when you look at the Indianapolis Colts cap situation. You could make it if you're another team to where, man, it'd be really hard for the Colts to ultimately sign him to this deal. You could lose Daniel Jones if you're the Colts, and you'd get no draft pick compensation. The franchise tag is 2 first-round draft picks. The transition tag is 0 draft picks. So that is the risk that general manager Chris Ballard and the Indianapolis Colts are running right now with Daniel Jones. But I'll say this, when you look around the NFL, who could really sign Daniel Jones to a deal that he would want to sign that the Indianapolis Colts could not match, Chris? It's not the Jets. He wouldn't want to go back to New York. It's not the Arizona Cardinals, right? The Miami Dolphins don't really have that kind of money. So it's really just the Minnesota Vikings, who are in a really difficult cap situation. They're looking to trade Jonathan Grenard. They're looking to get some cap space there. So could he potentially go to Minnesota? That is what we now have to shift our focus to. Minnesota may very well want to go after Kyler Murray, $1.3 million on the veteran minimum once he's released by the Arizona Cardinals, or it could be that they decide to get the money and make a run at Daniel Jones. So this is far from over for the Indianapolis Colts. Transition tag on Daniel Jones will work toward a long-term deal and now shift their focus, of course, to signing Alec Pierce to a deal, hoping he does not hit free agency.
All right, interesting stuff from Jonathan Jones.
Let's talk to Pete Prisco and Kyle Long about the transition tag now being put on Daniel Jones there. Pete, I'll start with you here. What do you think about the Colts making this move and also what it means for Daniel Jones?
Yeah, like JJ mentioned, I don't think there's a lot of options out there that are good for him. And that's the thing. I think when the Colts did this, they probably talked to him and they said, look, where are you going? You know, there's really an opportunity for you out there. Remember, he could have gone back to the Vikings last year and opted to go to Indianapolis. They also have, like JJ mentioned, a ton of cap issues right now. They're going to get rid of a bunch of guys that try and get under the cap. I don't think they can afford Daniel Jones. And when you're talking about a number, what it's going to cost for Daniel Jones, start at that tag number, because that's what his average is going to be,
about
at
$38
least.
million.
So you're going to assume his contract is going to be $40 million or more per year. The Vikings can't do that. So what are the options? I think the Colts did this because they're trying to get a long-term deal done with him. They didn't get it done. And I think this is more about, as much about him realizing that there's not a lot of opportunities for him out there. Could he surprise some people? Maybe, but I don't see where. Give me a chair. I don't see a chair for him, so I think he's going back to Indy.
Alec Pierce has been awesome for this football team, and the one thing that stands out to me is Daniel Jones just ain't healthy, and you're not going to spend $44 million on a guy who's not healthy.
They will, though.
And if Daniel Jones finished last season healthy, we could be having a different conversation about this. But I like your point about Minnesota, and that's a fan base who Daniel Jones will be a sight for sore eyes for Minnesota Vikings fans, because they've dealt with this quarterback issue for some time now. But we're at the point now where a transition tag, $38.8, $44 million for every parent in America should be like, son, you're going to play quarterback.
The problem is there aren't many of them, and that's why he's getting $38 million a year. Here's the other part of the equation for the Colts. They traded 2 first-round picks to go get Sauce Gardner. They're all in. The general manager, Chris Ballard, has to win this year. The coach probably has to win this year. If they don't win, they're both probably out. So the reality is they need Daniel Jones and they need Alec Pierce. And so I think this is one of those situations where it gives them a little time with Daniel Jones. They're probably shifting to negotiating with Alec Pierce right now to try and keep him off the free agent market. I would too. I love Alec Pierce. He was on my better than team back in the day. But more than that, he was on that team because he could run. Well, now he has learned the route tree, and he's become a good route runner, and he's a valuable guy. There are teams out there, if he hits the market, Buffalo, you should be knocking on that door in a hurry.
He's bigger than you think. He's tougher than you think. He's smart.
And he can go.
And he's one of those guys that grew up playing all sports. I seem to trust those guys.
Me too.
In football, and he's definitely one of those.
Really quickly back to Daniel Jones. I mean, because you said they just didn't come to a contract agreement, but you mentioned the injuries there. Do you think that plays into this while they're doing this?
That might play on outside the organization more than the inside the organization. The fact that they put the tag on him tells you that they think he's healthy enough to be their quarterback. Yeah, he's going to be their starting.
It takes time, Pete.
But remember, he played with a broken leg and then tore the Achilles. So he had 2 injuries last year. But I do think he'll be back healthy enough to be their starting quarterback, and I think they know that. This is just to try and get some time to get a long-term deal done with him, which I think ultimately they will do.
But since they use this tag, they can't use a tag on Alec Pierce.
Correct.
So you would think this makes it less likely they'll be able to keep him as well.
Or you're speeding up that process before he gets to the free agent market. You have a week. Go get it done. I mean, you can get him signed to a long-term extension. Now, if I'm Alec Pierce and I see Daniel Jones, that was one of the things you heard, that Alec Pierce wanted to know who the quarterback was going to be before he decided if he was going back to Indy. If Daniel Jones didn't get tagged and maybe he was going to hit the market, Alec Pierce might have said, you know what, I don't want to go back there either. Well, now that Daniel Jones is definitely going back, Alec Pierce might take a deal from the Colts and say, you know what, I'm going to stay here and play with him.
What did you think about what JJ said, that he could become just the second $40 million a year wide receiver in the NFL? Jamar Chase is the only one that does that right now, but JJ says he's hearing that he could get that much from somebody.
That's a little pricey for him because he's not Jamar Chase, he's not Justin Jefferson, but he's hitting the market at the right time. It's not a great receiver class, it's not a great receiving group in the college draft either, so he's hitting the market at the right time. Again, I think if I'm him, I would probably, if I was his agent, I say, we're going to go hit the market and see what's out there. If the Colts come to me and they want to give me $38, $39 million per year, I'm probably staying in Indy and deciding to play there.
I just think he's one of those guys that can step on the field anywhere he goes, whether it's Indianapolis. We've seen him have success there, but you throw him at any of these teams that are thirsty for another receiver option, and he'll have immediate success. I don't think America understands how good this guy Alec Pierce is. You put him in Buffalo with Josh Allen, you'll find out immediately how good he is.
But, and this is a big but when it comes to him, he isn't the elite receiver. He's not Justin Jefferson. He's not Jamar Chase. He's
he
not
catches the ball and you go, oh my God, him again?
He's not Smith and Jigba. He's not Puka Nacua. He's not that. What he is, and up until last year, he was a one-trick pony, go down the field and catch the ball. That's what he was. He was a deep threat who could run. Well, he's taught himself how to become a pretty good wide receiver. He's just not the elite of the elite. And if you're paying him $38, $39, $40 million a year, you're paying him like one of the elite of the elite.
All right, give us a vision. It's hard to say without knowing what's going to happen to Alec Pierce right now of the Colts next season, but you do have Daniel Jones. Let's hope he is healthy going into this. Pete, where are you right now on the Colts?
Well, look, they were a good football team before he got hurt, and I think if he gets back to being what he was and Pierce somehow finds his way back, they're going to be a good football team again. The offensive line's pretty good. They can run the ball. We know that. They got to get better on the defensive side of the ball, rushing the passer. I think that was a problem for him last year. Look, in that division now, they went in. At one point, they were the number one team. Remember, midway through the season, they were number one. And now what? They're probably the third team in that division.
We saw Jonathan Taylor at Radio Row, and first off, what a nice guy.
I thought you were going to say what a beast.
Pleasure to talk to
But
him.
also a nice guy.
Obviously a beast, but I asked him, how are you feeling? You know, these running backs, they take a beating, and he was like, I feel great. Let's go do it again, run it back. And I think that's what we're going to see next year. That blueprint, that identity will be there. They need to stay healthy on the defensive side of the ball. If they're going to score points, they got to take out the opposing quarterbacks.
Yep.
All right, so there we have it. A fourth tag, this one a transition tag, and it's for Daniel Jones of the Indianapolis Colts. He'll make $38 million or thereabouts under this tag. But a team can come in, and if they can agree to sign him to a better deal, then the Colts would have to come in and match that for Daniel Jones to be able to stay. Much more on the tag deadline.